Welcome to The Filter, a weekly podcast where we talk about church stuff. I'm Matt Steen.
Hey, I'm Todd Rhoades. Hey, Matt, I'm a little bit upset this morning, quite honestly.
Why are you so upset, Todd?
Well, I found out that from 4 people on Twitter last night that evidently some people are spreading some very nasty things about me on Twitter, and I'm not quite sure what to do about
it. Were they actually filming you?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure. Do you get those things too? Man, those things drive me nuts.
I get those all the time, and they change from time to time. They're filming you. They're doing this. They're doing that. I can't believe they're saying it.
I got 4 of those last night. So
one of these days, I'm going to actually check out and see what people are saying about me.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. That'll get you in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Oh boy.
All right, well, let's hop into this, man. There's a lot of hits and misses we're going to start off with this week, we could do one of these things every day. There is enough of this stuff, I think, every day to make a show. But a couple of hits and misses just to start us off with. What do you think? Did you see the Pat Robertson clip this week? This could actually be a feature every week on the show. The stupid thing that Pat Robertson says of the week.
I think we could do that. I think we should do that.
It's incredible. Pat Robertson's sitting, as he does on his 700 Club program, and I've always Pat Robertson seems like nice guy. You'd want to sit down and have a cup of coffee with or whatever. But he does this question answer thing with his host, where he answers questions of the viewers, and some guy wrote a letter to him saying, my wife's abusive, she's nasty, I don't know what to do with her. And Pat Robertson's response was, his quote was, you could become a Muslim so you could beat her.
Pat.
And I think Pat. He was, to Pat's credit, he was trying to make light. Note to self, wife-beating jokes are usually never funny.
Yeah.
Especially to the women in the audience and to your wife.
He said something along the lines of, "We just don't condone that anymore." It's like, when did we ever condone that?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what he was thinking, but he goes on for like a minute and a half trying to rebound from the joke that kind of bombed with the female host that he was with, and tried to, whittle it down to a semi-logical answer, and finally, the way he ends it is he says, what do you do? I don't really know. You can't really divorce her. You don't have scriptural grounds to divorce her, so maybe you should just move to Saudi Arabia. Do you understand that? I don't get it. So
that's special.
Yeah, and so anyway, so that's the first one. There's another one that kind of ties along into this, and this was one, Jim Baker from PTL fame, Jim and Tammy from back in the 70s. Jim's still going strong down in Branson, Missouri. He's got a show, actually looking kind of dapper. He's kind of balding with some gray hair and a little goatee, and but God is still talking to Jim Baker, and actually the thing I found kind of amusing is that God tends to talk narration.
Oh, really?
To Jim Baker. Yeah. So there are going to be, these are kind of things to watch out for. There are going to be desert disasters, and there's going to be California confusion.
No kidding. Desert disasters and California confusion.
Yeah. So, and a couple other things he said. There's going to be death by water, and one day New Orleans will be underwater forever.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that's encouraging for the people on the Gulf Coast. And if we keep messing with Israel, he told his audience, some of you are going to have to pull people from the rubble.
Well, that's pleasant. I've always
pleasant.
I never know what to do with these things because there's always the piece of the prophet's always rejected, but then again, it's Jim Baker and
yeah, I don't know, and that kind of leads me to a stupid idea of the week, and we're gonna actually shoot a separate one if you're interested in my stupid idea of the week. But I think there should be a moratorium or like an age limit on Christian spokespeople. or at least TV evangelists, that once you hit like, I don't know, I'm thinking like 40.
40.
Yeah, that you go off the air and you don't come back.
So it'd be like the Catalyst rule, 40 and under.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm 36, so I'll put off. I'll hold judgment on that because I'm biased.
I'm already over, so you'll have to do the rest of the show by yourself. Maybe I'll move it up to 50, and I'll have a couple more years.
Oh, 50. Okay. Well, that's what happened with Catalyst, isn't it? 10 years after the 40 rule, they realized that they didn't have anybody that could speak anymore. So sorry.
Oh, I don't know. Now you're gonna get us all fired now.
Yeah, I am. I'm trying.
Thanks, Matt. What you got, hit or miss? So anyway, those for me, both of those are big misses.
This is something that I originally thought was under the stupid idea category, but then I started thinking, this could have been helpful with the Pat Robertson video and the Jim Baker video. They're called modesty glasses. I saw this on Freakonomics. Apparently,
are they like beer glasses?
Oh, actually, they're probably close. They prevent beer glasses from actually working.
Okay.
Not that I know what beer glasses are,
Beer glasses are the ones that the more beers you have, the prettier the girls look.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
That's what I've been told. I don't know.
That's what you've been told. Yeah. So
I read that somewhere.
Yeah. So apparently in Jerusalem they have modesty patrols of the ultra Orthodox community, and what they're doing is they're selling these stickers that you put on your glasses, so that up close you can see normally, but off in the distance it makes it fuzzy. And so what these are designed to do is keep guys from inadvertently scoping out attractively dressed women in the distance.
Really?
Yeah.
That automatically assumes that everything outside of your close range of vision is an attractive woman.
Well, yes, it does. But it's what I thought was cool about Todd. I was a youth pastor. Don't know if you knew that. And one of the rules that we always had when we'd go to the beach is, no bikinis, one-piece bathing suit, all that kind of stuff. Just because there's issues at that age group between guys and girls, and well, pretty much from that age group on. And this is kind of intriguing. This could be one of those things that we just equip all of our boys with before going to the beach, and girls can wear whatever they want. I think it's kind of cool that they're shifting responsibility to men on this, as opposed to continuing to encourage women to dress more modestly.
Yeah, don't do that, for crying out loud.
Oh no, no.
Can you imagine though? This would make one heck of an infomercial.
It would, but you know what else I started thinking about with this? Do you remember the movie The Jerk?
Uh-huh. Yeah, with the glasses.
With Optigrab, and how all of a sudden he got sued for everything he was worth. Yeah, I'm thinking 5-10 years down the road, man. There's a big time lawsuit on this one.
All the class action lawyers will be having a heyday.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So is that a hit or a miss for you?
It's a hit for youth pastors everywhere, and a hit for class action lawyers down the road.
There you go. Cool. Well, I got one here. Impact Church in New Orleans. Their pastor actually sent me a tweet earlier this week, and they're using the kind of the Kickstarter type of a thing that's big now, kind of crowdsourcing ideas and fundraising and all that. They're using a similar site called Indiegogo.com to raise funds for their church plant. They're planning Impact Church in New Orleans, and they're hoping to raise $60,000, and I forget how many they had to have, even at $5 or $10 a piece, to get that $60,000 goal. Yeah, but I thought that was an innovative idea, at least taking something that's going on and trying to make it happen. Now, they've only raised about $531 as of the last time I checked of their $60,000 goal. So I don't know that it's going to be, raise $60,000 in 3 days, but that's probably $531 that they wouldn't have had. They got $5 from me that they wouldn't have had.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a great idea. And the cool thing about Indiegogo, I don't know if you have much experience with that, but you don't have to raise the full amount like Kickstarter.
Yeah, yeah, that was the other thing I was going to mention is that anything that does come in on this, unlike Kickstarter, they get to keep. So they get to keep the 531 even if they don't get close to the 60,000.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, and I think they're a little laxer than Kickstarter on some of the churchy type stuff. So
Are they? Yeah, I've not played around in that world at all, but I thought it was a cool idea. So that's a hit in my book.
absolutely, that's a definite hit. In that same vein, I saw a story about a church called Resurrection Fellowship out in Loveland, Colorado. They
Hmm.
are doing what they call the 555 campaign, and they're working pretty much to reach out to people who've been hurt by the church. And then they're also reaching out to different political figures within their local context, and also some pop icons, and
Hmm.
using a letter writing campaign and using social media, Facebook, Twitter, all that kind of stuff to reach out to these people and just say, hey, we love you. We're praying for you. To the political candidates, we're praying for you. We're also praying for your opponent, just so you know. And hey, why don't you come visit us sometime whenever you're in Colorado? And I think it's kind of a cool campaign as opposed to, I don't know if you've noticed this on Facebook. Um, but apparently an election's coming along and everybody and their brother has at least four opinions on it and
Hmm.
pictures to back up those
Yeah,
opinions.
yeah, and really, really uh, funny things that you would never think in person. That just makes all of us Christians look like real clods.
Oh,
I've
yes.
noticed from some of my
Just,
friends. It's like, just knock it off.
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of making me wonder if Facebook needs to go away until after the election, but we're not going to go down that road. So
So you're
anyhow,
saying this group is taking a positive approach, and I like
absolutely.
that. I
They
like
they
that.
are, and what was really cool about this is they started this with there was a Stanford professor and an artist in California named Enrique Chagoya. I butchered his name. Sorry, Enrique. Um, and apparently there was a protest, and a woman publicly destroyed one of his works of art, and then this church went out and said, hey, we're sorry about that, and really made an effort to make a relationship with this guy, and he's counting him as friends. So there's something to that reconciling approach that they're taking to it. I think that's a definite hit.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. It kind of reminds me of kind of another Hollywood type ministry that's going on that I read about every once in a while. Whenever American Idol starts, there's an actual American Idol in ministry, a gal and her husband that take some of the Idol contestants
Oh,
into
wow.
their home, and they, I think it's out of Saddleback actually,
Okay.
or at least has some kind of tie to Saddleback. But they minister to all those American Idol contestants all the way through,
That's cool.
which is it's really cool. Those people need Jesus and need fellowship and need support as well.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so that's a hit for you.
That's a hit for me.
It's a hit for me too. We're 3 for 3, I think, so far today. Let's see if we can disagree on this one. There's a church in Brigham City, Utah, Main Street Church,
Hmm.
that has decided to sue. They're going against City Hall. They're deciding to sue the city because they want to pass out anti-Mormon literature
Oh,
in
good.
front of the Mormon temple. And so they're upset. They're suing the city because the city's not giving them open access to the public sidewalk out in front. And this is kind of a hit and a miss for me. I think it's no, it's a miss. I'm sorry. This is one of those things of, can you do it? Yeah, you probably can. Should you do it? Not without looking like a real jerk. Um, if the tables were turned, if it was the Mormons coming out in front of Main Street Church, out in front of their sidewalk, handing out anti-Main Street Church literature as people were walking into church, I bet Main Street Church people would be really upset and
Yeah,
crying
but
foul.
that's different.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're saying.
what I thought was fascinating about that is the ACLU is actually bringing the suit.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I thought, oh, that's an interesting combination there.
Oh, yeah, I'm
But
sure.
so that's just an absolute miss for me. There are I think there are probably better ways to evangelize the Mormon community than to hand out flyers and do that right in front of them as they're going into the temple.
Yeah.
Just my guess.
Just something about being a neighbor. So.
But Todd, you have not done anything to evangelize Mormons. And you're right. So maybe I should just keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. So speaking of outreach.
So big miss for Todd.
Big miss for Todd on that one. You know, we need you to get on that Romney dude. You've got pool, right? So in the vein of outreach, I stumbled upon this story about a pastor in Brunswick, Georgia, who's going door to door in public housing complexes, handing out condoms.
Handing out condoms.
Why
is he doing that?
Well, here's what he's saying. He's saying that it's recently been revealed that Brunswick has the second highest HIV rate in all of Georgia, second only to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes on and he says, and I'm going to read this word for word. As a pastor, I understand. I preach from the pulpit. Please wait until you're married to have sex. But if you look at the alarming numbers of new HIV cases, especially in the African American community, obviously no one is listening. And so what he and his church are doing is they're doing what they're calling Get Tested Sunday, where they come out, they do confidential HIV tests, counseling, all that kind of thing, and they're starting by, promoting it through giving out condoms. And there's going to be people that protest this, and there's going to be people that have an issue, have pretty significant issues with this. But I kind of like where he's headed with this, and that might get some hate mail. It's Todd Rhoades at gmail.com or something like that.
I totally disagree, for the record, and it's at Todd Rhoades at Twitter.
Yeah.
Totally couldn't disagree with you more on this one. No, I don't know. I do have a suggestion to him. I wish, for the sake of all that's good and true, that this pastor would, instead of handing out condoms, hand out the modesty glasses.
Yeah.
I think that would be a much better way of taking care of the problem.
I will pass that along to him if I can.
Yes, please do.
But cool thing that he was doing, and the video is well worth watching, and the link will be in the show notes. But when he came across a couple that was living with one another, he looked at him and he said, "Hey, look, I'll marry you for free. We'll do the reception in the church for free because we want you to get married."
Mm-hmm.
And that got me thinking. We need stupid idea of the week: mobile marriage kit for my buddy down in Brunswick, Georgia.
Oh,
yeah,
that's not a bad idea.
Just fit something he can get in a messenger bag over his shoulder and just bust it out, and hey, instant marriage.
You sign here. There you go.
You sign here. You sign here. Brings a witness. Man, I think there's something to that. That could sell.
Good. Well, I think we'll record another segment on that where you can kind of
elaborate.
Lay that out a bit better. But that's actually not a bad idea. But that's a valid. He has a valid point, and this is the area that gets really kind of. You're right on the edge, and this is where ministry really gets messy. When there are with a lot of the social issues and the way the culture has gone. And I think this way about homosexuality, and I get hate mail on this too. I think my problem with the way the church goes after homosexuality, and a plug, we're going to deal with that on the 9s in October, how the church should respond to homosexuality. But my big thing is I think a lot of times we put the issues, like whether it's the premarital sex or the homosexuality, as kind of the litmus test of whether or not we even get to share Jesus with them.
Yeah.
My feeling is people need to know about Jesus more than they need to be told that they're in sin with the homosexual, in particular sin. Now, obviously, part of coming to Jesus is the repenting of sin and all of that. But I think so many times we often lead with those things, which causes our voice to automatically be squashed to where they won't listen to anything else we say. So from that aspect, I say what he's doing is positive. Although I will say when I've heard this from parents, the same argument from parents. You know, my kids are going to do this anyway, so I might as well make the stuff available. It makes me cringe.
Yeah, and
I live in rural Ohio. I don't live in the inner city.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know how that factors in.
I think it's different for the parent, though. You know, I don't think this is a parent-child relationship.
Yeah.
This is a pastor caring for his flock, realizing that, you know,
there's a pastor that cares about his community.
Exactly. And this is, you know, as a youth pastor, this is one of the things that I really struggled about. We'd be pressured to do the sex talk on a yearly basis and all that kind of stuff, and it was okay. So I'm also recognizing that the stats are not in the favor of kids in youth groups. So how do we approach this in a way that is honest, but it's not, you know, setting kids up for badness down the road? I mean, you know, I think the stats at the time were I think 85% of kids outside the church world were using some sort of condoms, protection, that kind of stuff, and then you'd have like 90% of kids in the church world weren't. And that's one of those tensions that you got to wrestle out without getting fired, and that's tough to do.
Yeah. Well, hey, this filter episode of The Filter has taken a real dark tone all of a sudden. So let's talk about Jesus burgers.
Let's talk about Jesus burgers.
How was that for a segue? I'm still working on my segues, man. There's a church in Isla Vista, California, IVC Church, and for the last 10 years, they have been serving up 200 hamburgers, taking their grill out and just grilling for the local college crowd, the people that are kind of out wandering the street, partying, having a good time, giving them free burgers, talking about Jesus. They've done this for 10 years, and what they're doing is they're compiling a book, which I would really love to get my hands on. It's going to have 25 testimonies of people that they've reached through this Jesus burger outreach. And I say hats off. It's a big hit for me. Great job, you guys. 10 years doing this. Awesome. That's
cool. That really is cool. So I bet they're really good burgers. Better than In-N-Out.
Well, I would hope so.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's big hit for me. Good job, guys.
Me too. I read an article on Bloomberg Business Week this week about rise of the corporate chaplain. Have you heard about this?
Aren't you highfalutin?
Well, yeah, you know.
Reading your Bloomberg.
I live out on Long Island. It's mandatory. So otherwise, we'll lose the rest of our sodas.
Speak it in layman's terms for me.
Okay, so there's a corporate chaplain program put on by Marketplace Chaplains USA, and basically this is a group that was started in '84, and just has chaplains, you know, walking around within companies. You know, the companies pay for it. Mm-hmm. And makes the chaplains available to their employees. It's kind of based on the old military model of having the chaplain attached to a unit and being able to build relationships and that kind of stuff. It was pretty cool idea. We'll link off to the story in the show notes, but there's like 1,000 companies that are now using these guys, and you know they're
really. How do they deal with the whole Christian, Muslim, Buddhist type of a challenge in a larger company? I would think if you're going to have a Christian chaplain, you've got to have a Muslim chaplain and all that kind of thing.
The story really didn't go down that road. It alluded to the fact that there are some companies that make those available as well, but really didn't. I mean, but for the most part, it was talking about the Christian chaplains that were available.
It's still a Christian country, baby.
Oh boy, we just had our first Pat Robertson moment. Anyhow, moving right along.
Should have stuck to my 40-year-old rule there, shouldn't I?
Yeah, probably.
Oh well, yeah. Moving right along. Here's an interesting story out of Phoenix, and there's beginning to get a little bit of a trend here coming out of Phoenix with some of the stories. Coming out of Phoenix these days, but there's a woman in Phoenix. Now, the story didn't say whether she was a part of a church or whether she was just kind of doing this on her own, but she goes to this festival in Phoenix. It's 112 degrees out, and she's handing out free water. You know, a lot of churches go to things and hand out free bottles of water. So she's handing out water, and a city official comes up to her and tells her she needs to knock it off because she doesn't have the proper permit, and she cannot give one bottle of free water away again until she gets these proper permits. $380 worth of proper permits in order to give out these free waters, which I think is just a huge miss on the city of Phoenix's part, and it's just dumb. But this could have some ramifications. There's some legal actions and all kinds of nasty letters going back and forth to try and get this thing taken care of. But this could have some ramifications, at least in Phoenix, for churches that want to do this type of kind of out in the street outreach type of thing.
Yeah, I temper my judgment on this, and
Okay.
I might actually disagree with you on this one.
Uh-oh.
I understand it's great idea giving away water and all that kind of stuff, but it was a festival, and where you have merchants that are paying $380 however much for the permits and then for booze and tables and all that kind of stuff. So I get the city wanting to protect the investment from all these vendors.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I mean, it's a free bottle of water. Come on. So I
hadn't thought about the vendor. I hadn't thought about the vendor thing.
I think there's a balance there. I saw it. There was a church I knew at one point that did this huge outreach in the city square, like town square, with restaurants and all that kind of stuff around them. And it was a great idea, giving out free burgers and hot dogs and all that kind of stuff. Except surrounding this park where they were all these restaurants that were just dying business-wise that day.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a piece of that. I definitely think that what she wants to do and the heart behind it is a hit, but I also am not as quick to pass judgment on the city of Phoenix on this one.
All right, I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one, but move on before I change my mind.
Okay, quickly. So out in Topeka, stumbled across this 30 congregations coming together in an initiative called Rethinking Justice. Basically, instead of doing the denominational stuff and getting hung up on the distinctives of their denomination, they're actually saying, you know what, we're going to figure out what it's going to take to make Topeka a better place to live. And I think this is huge, and this is actually the topic of my Nines talk that I just sent in, and I'm hoping what everybody will see on the Nines. Hint, hint. But this is, I mean, I really appreciate the heart behind these guys and what they're doing. You have Catholic churches, you have Baptist churches, you have Lutheran and Presbyterian. I mean, all the people that normally you make the light bulb jokes about are all coming together to figure out how to best impact their city. So
this just absolutely reeks of ecumenicalism. There, I used a word for my Baptist upbringing.
Good work, man. Good work. Way to dig deep.
So because of my upbringing, and I'm going to give this a neutral.
Really?
Rating.
Okay.
No, I think it's good. I think it's good. They're talking about justice issues. They're not talking about theology issues. So if it was a theological get-together and you had all these people together, I think it'd be probably not a win. But
yeah,
for making the city a better place to be, I think it's a good thing.
Well, if they come together talking about theological issues, it's probably going to turn into a prize fight, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it probably would. It would not. It would not turn out well. Speaking of things that aren't turning out well, see, by the time we get to our 20th show, I'm going to have this segue thing down. I'm telling you. Things that may not be going well. There's kind of word on the street that Benny Hinn's remarriage ceremony may have been canceled.
Oh no!
Nobody's really saying anything about this, other than Benny had been kind of estranged from his wife, who had kind of filed for divorce a few years back, and then they were reconciled earlier this year, and they announced this it's going to be a miraculous remarriage ceremony, recommitment ceremony that was going to happen Friday, October 5th in Florida. But now his schedule lists that Benny is going to be holding 3 miracle services in Raleigh, North Carolina on that date.
Oh no!
The church in Florida's taken the event off their calendar. It's not on their church calendar anymore. Nobody's commenting, but it sounds like that the remarriage ceremony may be they may have put the kibosh on the remarriage ceremony.
Well, now this is a problem, Todd.
Why is that a problem?
Because Priceline doesn't refund hotel rooms if you don't make the trip.
Are you out some money on that one?
I'm going to be out some money on that one, but I can still go to Catalyst. So
go to Catalyst. There you go. No, so it's bad news. Take what I think is Benny's kind of really out there theology. I don't wish any ill toward him, and I was happy when I heard that he was getting back together with his wife. So, I hope and pray that they can still work it out and that things work well for them. So.
Yeah. Well, I guess it sounds like that's something. Now for my turn at the awkward segue.
That may get the prize for the most awkward segue of the day.
I win. Story caught my eye this week about a church in Lawrenceville, Georgia. It's the International House of Prayer down there, and IHOP. And apparently their neighbors aren't very big fans of the church. Apparently they're doing 24-hour worship services, and with those 24-hour worship services, they have loud music and an ungodly amount of bass. So I
love bass. I love me some bass.
I'm sure you love some bass, but apparently the neighbors don't, because the bass...
Probably not at 3 in the morning.
No, the bass shakes their house inside, and they say that things fall over.
Really? It's that loud?
Well, yes. In fact, they say they go all night. Now, I'm familiar with this building. The church I worked at in Atlanta for a while actually used to own this building, and it's not very well insulated, and the houses are pretty close. And so we didn't have services that were going at 3 in the morning, but we did try to tone it down at night and that kind of stuff. And what surprised me about this story is I read this in the Sacramento newspaper. That's where I picked up on this. Not the Georgia newspaper,
yeah.
not a local Georgia paper or anything like that. But it was picked up by the AP, spread out all over the place, and you have California newspaper that's printing this story, and it's like, really, is this the message that we want to send on? And one of the neighbors, she basically says they don't care. That's the end of it, I think. And I just, come on, guys, please, be nice.
Yeah. Well, I know a little bit about the IHOP church. They're kind of do the 24-hour prayer type things.
Yeah.
But interesting note on them is that International House of Pancakes actually filed suit against them a couple years ago for using their name, for using the initials IHOP. But I guess they settled that. But I thought that was interesting note that was in my head that I had to get out. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's cool. that's cool. The race for awkward segues continues. So
there we go. Well, let's move on to our filter section. We got just a couple stories to talk about. The filter section is kind of the area where we share some current news that's coming on that would be interesting to you in your ministry. The first one I've got here is a New Jersey church, Liquid Church in Morristown, New Jersey, is actually going to do some live polling about some politics and some political things during a sermon series. There's a couple different ways we could go with this, Matt, but I think, first of all, the technology end I think is pretty cool. I don't know that I'd want to do this every week in a church service.
Yeah.
But they're actually going to ask questions and have people use their cell phones, their smartphones, to text in the answers, and then they'll show the answers, kind of the culmination of the vote live on the screen. Which is kind of a cool thing to do. Like I said, I don't know that I want to do it every week, but it would be kind of cool for once the technology's there for pastors to be able to use this for some instant feedback and and to play off their messages. What do you think?
I think it's cool. I think man, I can only imagine the amount of preparation that goes into preparing to be able to shoot back and forth, as questions come in and that kind of thing. That's got to be just a lot of preparation. But I think it's a pretty cool. I think it's a pretty cool idea that they're doing this, and I like some of the answers or the questions that they were saying that they're going after. Can a Christian vote for a Mormon, or how would Jesus handle hot button issues such as gay marriage and immigration? You should probably see about getting Jesus for the nines. I think he could probably have a decent speech.
We've got the request out.
Okay.
The request is out. I think the email bounced.
Oh no.
Yeah, which is not good for me, but
server issues. Oh no.
Yeah, no, I think this is good. It's something we used to do a long time ago. This was probably 10, 15 years ago, when we did a service for kind of younger people, is that we didn't have text messaging and all that kind of stuff wasn't real prominent back then, but we had people actually write down their questions on a card after the message, and we do a short Q&A time with the pastor, like 10 minutes afterwards. And it's really, really good, the questions that people have after a message that can be addressed, and some of them are that was, when a pastor writes a message, he doesn't necessarily, he's looking at it from his own standpoint most of the time. Right. But once he delivers that, it's going to automatically spring up some questions in people's minds. I don't know that that's what Tim Lucas, lead pastor there at Liquid Church, is doing with this necessarily, but I think it's great to have that interactive part. I think it draws in the crowd into what you're saying, and I think it's a really good thing to do. So
yeah. What I really like about what they're doing here too is on the marketing end of this. They do a phenomenal job of marketing their church anyhow, but they're doing a couple things here that I think is really cool. One, this was a part of a press release that's
how I found out about it.
Yeah, it's being spread out to newspapers and everything, and they're doing something that they called headline jacking. Have you heard of this? Basically, they're saying what are the trending news topics, items going on in the world around us, and how can we craft a story that can jump on that train.
Yeah.
And so using that, I mean, they're saying what this does is this essentially, tells however many people read this press release, that this church is here. Here's when services are. They're multi-site, so they've got 3 campuses now. They're about to launch a 4th. Hey, come out. Here's times, dates, services, all that kind of stuff. Here's our website. Come hear more about, come hear more about the election, but let's talk about Jesus as well. I think that's pretty cool, pretty savvy.
No, I think it's brilliant, and it obviously worked. I'm sitting here in Ohio, and I saw the press release, so it's a little long of a commute for me to go to church on Sunday, but
oh, come on, suck it up.
But we're here talking about it. Well, something else I wanted to talk about real quickly this morning is a Catholic bishop in Kansas City, Robert W. Finn, was convicted of a misdemeanor this past week for failing to report suspicion of child abuse. And this is the highest-ranking Catholic official in the U.S. anyway that's been convicted of anything in the whole church sex scandal thing. And I realize that since it's Catholic, maybe it doesn't apply, or we think it doesn't apply to a lot of us, but I'm seeing more and more stories, Matt, about churches that are being charged legally and being held accountable, which I think really they should be, about not reporting things, particularly when it comes to sexual abuse or youth or children. In this case, they found hundreds of lewd pictures of young girls on one of their priest's computers in December of 2010, and they didn't notify police until, and it wasn't even the bishop that did, it was the Monsignor that notified police, but it was 5 months later in May. So they sat on that information knowing that this stuff was going on. You just can't do that. You can't do that. You will be held accountable. And if you put yourself in the parents' position of some of these, in a church, and you've got parents of teens and it comes out that you've waited 6 months when you knew something was going on with somebody else, you're going to have a lot of infuriated parents in your church, and you're also going to have some legal problems.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is what I want to be careful how I say this. I think it's better than the track record that the Catholic Church has had up until this point, where they just wouldn't report at all. Now that it's taking 5-6 months to do it, I think that's better, but that's still that just ain't right. And as church leaders, we are, there's always sometimes there's the question about confidentiality and all that kind of stuff. Let's be clear. We don't have confidentiality privileges when it comes to this kind of thing. I mean, that's just not something that pastors, church staff, or anybody has. This is something that we are required to report as soon as we hear something. There's a website, childwelfare.gov, that gives a pretty clear explanation of who is a mandatory reporter, who's required to report this stuff. And if you're not familiar with your state rules, you got to do that, because that's just you don't play with this.
Yeah, and there are that's a great point, and there are different rules in different states right now. I know Michigan just had a rule where confidentiality was actually upheld between the pastor and a victim of this type of thing. But I'll also have a friend in Pennsylvania, particularly because of the Jerry Sandusky issue. I mean, Pennsylvania, they have like zero tolerance for anybody not reporting that kind of thing right now. Yeah. And that particularly goes for pastors and churches. So you need to know what the laws are, but you got to do the right thing too.
Absolutely.
Particularly when it's hard, you got to do the right thing. You got to do it nearly immediately.
Right away.
You've got to be prepared for it.
Absolutely.
So, well, once again, we've kind of dived into the depths of despair here. Some weeks there's going to be a lot of great stuff. Some weeks there's going to be a lot of that was this week. So let's go into what's in my head. I've got one thing that's in my head, and I'm just going to mention it very quickly. The link will be in the show notes. I thought it was a very good article by Jim Daly, who's the president of Focus on the Family, and I've been kind of critical on Focus on the Family over the past few years. With I just think some of the things that they did 20 years ago that they're still doing just aren't effective. But this was a really good article on 6 myths that Christians believe about politics. He lists 6 different things, like nothing can be done, we must be loud, we got to get angry, we got to fight the darkness, and he turns all of those things into a positive. Like, instead of needing to fight the darkness, we need to be more light, we need to produce more light. And that's just a totally different view than what many in Christianity do when it comes to politics. So many of my Christian friends are just angry and upset, and there's a time for that. But read this article. I think it'll really it's kind of in my head this week. I'm thinking about it as the election comes on. Is do I really want to be bitter, or do I want to try and make a difference? Yeah. So the link is there in the notes. Go ahead and read it. I think you'll like it.
That's cool, especially coming from Focus. I'm encouraged to hear that.
Me too. And you know what? I've heard absolutely nothing but absolutely great things about Jim Daly.
Really?
Ever since he took over, I've heard nothing. I don't know the guy and don't follow them really closely, to be honest. But I've heard from 5 or 6 different people that he is just an absolutely great guy, and that he's going to do great things at Focus. So I'm excited.
Very cool. Very cool. In my head this week, Aaron Wren has a great blog called the Urbanophile. It has nothing to do with Christianity or faith or anything like that, but it has everything to do with cities.
Why are you reading it?
Because I'm a heathen.
Oh, okay.
But I admit it. So it talks about cities and city life and city design and how cities work and that kind of stuff. And it's a fascinating blog for those of you that are geeky about that stuff like me. But I stumbled across something that I'll put in the show notes, a post that he had talking about how everybody or a lot of people in the Boston transit system have what they call relative ability, meaning that they may not have any skills that are helpful to the organization, but they're related to somebody powerful. And so one of the yeah,
there's actually a name for that, huh?
Yeah, it's relative ability. And so he was interviewing a guy that had worked there for a while who stumbled across a guy with a drinking problem. Who every time he was confronted on his drinking problem, he would say, "Do you know who my son is? He's Senator so and so," and he was a state senator that was highly connected. Apparently, obviously had a lot to do with the funding of the transit organization. And finally, this guy just had enough. The guy's drunk on shift, and he says, "Okay, that's fine. That's great. You're still suspended." The next day, he gets a phone call from this senator, and he says, "Hey, I heard that you suspended my father." On and on, and the guy says, "Well, yeah, I did." And he's not going to come back until he's got things under control. And the senator stopped and he says, "Thank God. I have been trying to get somebody to help me have him deal with his drinking problem for years." And it's a neat story, but I wonder sometimes, we get so afraid of having the difficult conversations, whether it's in our churches, whether it's in the 700 Club, whether it's in, the different organizations that we're involved in. But people know, and part of being a leader is just stepping up and saying, "Look, this just doesn't work. We need to deal with this." Mm-hmm. And so, if that's encouragement, great. It's sticking in my head this week.
Yeah, and I've seen actually 2 or 3 blog posts that you bring up the 700 Club thing, actually calling for someone to hold Pat Robertson accountable.
Yeah.
Who does Pat have in his life that's going to actually sit him down and say, "Pat, this just it's not working anymore. You really should at least don't do the question and answer thing." But some people don't have people in their lives that are willing to take those kind of risks and have those tough conversations.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, it's their downfall. It's everybody's downfall.
Absolutely. For a leader that isn't willing to have tough conversations, I don't know that we're a leader. So.
Yeah. That was dark.
Yeah, I'm glad that we could end on a high note. Anyhow, so Todd, you're like inundated with Nines videos this week.
Oh yeah, you know what? Yeah, today actually is the deadline for all the Nines videos to come in, and they are coming in like gangbusters. So
nice.
I told you yesterday when we talked, it's almost like Christmas here at the Todd Rhoades email box. I'm getting all these really great presentations. This is going to be the best Nines ever. I just have to say. Cool. Some of the presentations on some of these hot topics are really, really good. So you guys are going to want to watch it. October 25th and 26th, 2 days this year. So
outstanding.
On the calendar. What are you doing this week?
This week, well, I finished up my Nines video yesterday.
That's good.
So this week it's back to the grind, coaching cohorts this week, and then getting ready for Movement Day, which is the week after. Had a neat conversation with Mac Peer for the New York Church Leadership Center earlier this week that I'll share on my blog next week, just in advance for Movement Day in 2 weeks, and gearing up for Catalyst and just kind of the fall conference season grind.
Oh, I know. October's going to be crazy for me. I think I'm traveling about every week, so
nice.
It's fun, but it's crazy. So
nice.
Well, hey, it's been good to touch base with you, and
yeah, man.
Hopefully people are enjoying getting to know us a little bit better, and maybe not.
Yeah,
Jury's still out on that one. We should do a live text vote.
We should. And we have one person right now who just go ahead and tweet to Matt_Steen. What you think? One viewer.
Please don't. Please don't.
Outstanding.
So, okay. Well, hey. Until next week.
Until next week.
Have a great one.
See ya.